The only thing I'm seeing I'd like to put an amend on, perhaps a little more room here for the fixins. You know what I'm talking about?
Ooh, we're gonna have a lot of fixins?
We're gonna have so many fucking fixins up in this motherfucker. This shit's gonna go through the roof, man. Ah, damn, I'm shitting gold these days.
We made it. We made it.
Buy this car to drive to work to pay for this car. Buy this car to drive to work.
Welcome to YellBRo. I'm Jordan, and today we're going to talk about Sam Seder, Jimmy Dore, Briahna Joy Gray, the Bad Faith Podcast, Virgil the whiskey sipper, or scotch, whatever he was drinking during that whole debate. We're going to talk about all of it, kind of. But first, please remember to share and hopefully donate to Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. Click on it, read the story, check out what's going on. And all you gotta do is copy and paste the link on your favorite social media sites. It's free to do. Please do that. Do it now. Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. Alright. So, as you can see on screen here, this is me responding to a tweet from Sam Seder. So, in the tweet, Sam said, "Surely you'd agree that the billionaire right-wing money bankrolling these armed no-lockdown militia is probably a little more responsible for us not having Medicare for all than AOC, right?" So what he's saying is, Jimmy had on a Jimmy though. Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. He's he's doing this, I guess what people call a straw man argument, where Jimmy is strictly blaming AOC for all the problems in government, why there is no Medicare for all or any type of progressive policy passed. Sam is saying that Jimmy is blaming AOC. And I respond with, well, wasn't Dore yelling about Biden for all this time? Right? And Sam's response was to vote Biden. Even before that, wasn't Jimmy yelling about Hillary? Sam's solution was to vote for Hillary. How about when Dore, going even further back, when Dore's bringing up, I don't know, possibly some type of rigging against Bernie Sanders in his 2016 campaign, 2015-2016 run for president. Where was Sam at? Did Sam do anything about it? So then we fast forward to today, when Jimmy is pissed at AOC and the squad and these people. Sam ignores all those past arguments of Jimmy's reasons why we don't have Medicare for all. Right? That's such a dishonest fucking argument. Jimmy just waited for AOC to start complaining about Medicare for all. He just started blaming her. And it's like, you didn't see all his prior work to where he's like laying out like these guys, even though I might disagree with it, he calls these people like they're actually right-wingers. They're actually conservatives. That's why you don't have Medicare for all. Because these guys don't want that because of their, whatever, greedy, corporate, right-wing, blah, blah, blah. Like, he did the work to lead up to this point to where he's yelling at AOC. And thus, I'm going to call Sam Seder a little cunt. Because that's what little cunts do. They mealy mouth through fucking life, and then when there's a moment, where the guy you don't like is starting to get really popular off of this, you come out of nowhere just to fucking push it down. Say, well, Jimmy just, why is he always yelling at Democrats for? It's like he's been yelling at everything for years now, right? It's like, is Sam new to Jimmy Dore? I'm pretty sure he's not. But he's pretending like Jimmy hasn't laid out the groundwork of, here's all these corrupt assholes here's all your barriers to why you don't have Medicare for all, or why you're still in war with these other countries, or any type of student loan debt, all of it, police reform. He's like, oh, this is why these things never get taken care of. Because we're not putting their feet to the fire. And of course, Sam's response is a dishonest argument. Well, Jimmy platforms right-wingers who are against Medicare for all. See? Look. But, all right. So that was Sam responding to Briahna Joy Gray, who said I hope she's being facetious with this statement. It was sincerely a pleasure to have you on. I'm sorry if my tone offended you. Don't be fucking sorry about that. First of all, you were fucking smiling and very nice. Yes, there's parts where you're yelling and stuff, but that's called passion. I would hope you'd have that. I mean, if you're yelling because you care about something and the little pussy runs away, then and so be it. Just call him a little pussy and move on with your life. Shit. But she's responding, she's responding to this. To recap, I was yelled at for 3 hours for thinking the leader of Force the Vote, Jimmy Dore, saying AOC is the reason we don't have Medicare for all was unhelpful. That's clearly not the case, right? It's clearly not the case that Jimmy strictly blames AOC, because he's blamed Biden before. He's blamed all these people. He's blamed right-wingers, left-wingers. All the work has been laid out of people he's blaming for why things don't change in this country. It's already been laid out. And in that very moment, he was praising an armed right-wing militiaman who wants to destroy government, which undoes Medicare for all, I guess. Hashtag pod fraud. Like, And Brianna's like, well, we've clipped some highlights for those who missed it over on Bad Faith Podcast's YouTube page. One of the most productive moments, in my opinion, was having an opportunity to correct Sam's misunderstanding of how House voting rules work. So it's like, look at the logic of this. Your whole thing, Sam, is that you're like, I understand how the detailed decision making, the detailed maneuvers that happen in politics, and Jimmy doesn't. He's just some guy who yells loud at a microphone. He doesn't know anything about this. I went to school for this. I understand it. Jimmy doesn't. And then he goes on with Briahna, who is more in favor with Jimmy's idea of things. Well, actually, she tried to separate Jimmy from the conversation. Say like, oh, well, regardless of Jimmy being here or not, push that to the side. And what's the actual policy thing we're arguing about? And that's the thing she says she agrees with. So this essentially exemplifies how, okay, so you're wrong about the policy thing as far as how the voting actually works. And then you're wrong about the PR thing, which is your second argument, right? Well, if you have Jimmy Dore at the head of it, it's a blah, blah, blah problem. Even though she's like, well, just get rid of Jimmy Dore. How about the actual idea we're talking about here? Are you okay with that? And, of course, he'll mealy-mouth his way around that as well. You know what? Let's just play the clip. Here's Sam being wholesale incorrect on the thing he's supposed to be the expert at, or claims to be an expert at, or claims is the right way to, why you can't do things. You can't do things because of the things Sam Seder understands that apparently these two other assholes don't. I'm sorry for calling you assholes. It's just, we shit talk over here. Here we go.
The progressive holdouts, let's say there's 10 of them, okay? They vote for Hakeem Jeffries. it has to be less than that, because the majority is not the majority of people who are voting. It's the majority of people who vote for a named candidate, right? You know this.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, okay, so let's say Nancy Pelosi calls their bluff. Don't vote for me. And they vote for Hakeem Jeffries. It goes into, enough of only like 4 of them vote for Hakeem Jeffries so that there is no majority. They have to revote, right? Yeah. And then what happens? Either they have the same vote that they had before, or they switch to Pelosi, or they maybe other people vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
So
but
let's
it goes to a second round.
It goes to a second or third or fourth or
round. Wait a second.
Round of voting.
Second round. Now you have 15 people who vote for Hakeem Jeffries, 215 who vote for McCarthy, and 205 who vote for Nancy Pelosi. What happens then, Virgil?
Wait, hang on. Why would if memory serves, McCarthy got 212 votes? So you're not saying that number goes up?
No, I'm suggesting in round two,
nobody can marshal a majority, so it goes to round 3.
No. You don't need you need a plurality of names.
That's not true.
It would require Democrats would have to vote for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker. Or a large number would have to abstain altogether.
Yes, or abstain. Under your scenario, Sam, you need a majority of the people voting for a name.
Okay, so let's
say not voting present, which means that if every single Democrat shows up and they vote for someone, then unless they have a majority within that caucus, I'll say it's not a majority, and this is again assuming the Republicans voted as a bloc and they are a minority, and no Democrat is going to vote for McCarthy, obviously, then it's just going to keep going to successive ballots.
Right.
And this is not an unprecedented situation.
Right.
It's simply a situation we've not had in 100 years.
So this whole scenario of this Republican will become the House Speaker now if we don't vote for Nancy was completely incorrect, according to these guys. I don't know much. I'm not an expert. I don't know. But so if that's not that eliminates that excuse, right? That excuse is now gone from the discussion as far as a reason to like. Why are you so... I don't get the... It's almost like the way Tim Pool talks about Donald Trump, where it's like you play mental gymnastics to find reasons to support Trump. He's doing it in regards with Nancy Pelosi. And it's like... It's dumbfounding. Literally dumbfounding. And these guys are like, you absolutely trash all the leverage. You trashed all that leverage you had right there. For what? For what? I think a lot of people say, well, the pay-go thing. But according to this Briahna Joy chick, it's like, that's not holding up either. It's like, oh, you didn't really get anything. It's all based around the COVID shit. So when or if COVID's cleared up, then that whole thing you leveraged for disappears with it. Right? Fuck. Alright, so I guess what I wanted to do was look at more of these videos. It's like, because this sort of leads into, like, was there a downside to saying, hold out your vote for Nancy Pelosi to get something out of it? Is there a downside to it? Here we go.
Like I say, it just gets back to, use my phone to nail in, a nail. Like, I could probably get that nail into this, wood desk with my phone, but then the phone is done. And all I've done is that one nail. And I would
rather... But I asked you, Sam, what you thought that what are the concrete losses that the squad would accrue if they were to withhold a vote for Nancy Pelosi? And so if you're saying that what you really would ask them to hold it out for is committee chairs, the committee seats, and they went ahead and withheld the vote in order to get committee seats. Well, then by definition, they couldn't even take away committee seats from them, right? Because they would have gotten them as part of their campaign. So what is it that we're so afraid of them losing? Because for me, it's not that I was so sure of the benefit, but there was just no downside to the thing. They already talk shit about Medicare for all. There's already billions of dollars of advertising against Medicare for all. The media is already against it. It can't get any worse than this. So what is the downside to trying?
Well,
what happens when the strategy guy is losing on strategy? Where can he go from there? Now, I'm not going to call Sam Seder and Cenk Uygur the same thing, right? Sam will try to make intellectual sounding arguments about strategy in order to get somewhere. Cenk will use PR. But when the strategy guy is out of strategy, where does he go? PR. I mean, I think it's clear as day. And when I reacted to this entire debate, basically all of it, until they started doing like crowd questions, open mic questions, whatever. Before that, when I watched that whole thing, I'm like, this is so fucking exposing. This is super exposing. And I'm glad people are actually noticing how exposing this actually is. Here we go. So Briahna asked Sam, like, well, what's the downfall? What's the downside of this? Because I don't see one. I don't see one if you claim to be the progressive champions that you claim to be. There is no downside to holding out your vote for Nancy Pelosi. Here we go.
I'm not convinced, frankly, that 5
Tell us,
freshman
Sam.
or sophomore Congress people or 6 or whatever preventing Pelosi from getting this. I know you're convinced that people that somehow, despite the media imbalance and despite the conventional wisdom,
don't talk about the upsides, because I don't know about the upsides either.
No,
My question right now is, what are the downsides?
I'm saying the downsides. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in that standoff, I'm not convinced that they wouldn't pay a massive price in terms of their popularity.
So PR. They'll lose face. Instead of saving face, they'll lose face if they do this, because of the media apparatus that I don't spend enough time, that Jimmy Dore spends time questioning. I'm sure he's made some videos about mainstream media sucking, but it's kind of like all these what people I guess call neoliberals, or the corporate establishment, or whatever, the establishment. It seems like they have to use these other guys' messaging, right? And not only do they need their messaging, they need them in order to continue on saying, we're like you, we like you, we fight for progressive policies too. See, look, we lit the squad, they have dinner with us, we all have meetings together. They're one of us. And if they're one of us, you're one of us. And we love you. And it's like, Sam's essentially saying that there's this fucking noose hanging over the head of the squad or whatever, that if they go against Nancy Pelosi, the media will drown upon them and wreck their shit. But it's like, I could have swore AOC has 11 million followers. If AOC put up a tweet up against, I don't know, Joy-Ann Reid from MSNBC, who do you think's going to win that battle? They put up two opposing views next to each other. Who do you think's going to win that battle on PR alone? I mean, by PR, I mean like actual public like with actual people. How are they going to view this? I think they're taking AOC's side. I think they're taking Ilhan Omar's side. I think they're taking the squad side. So they lose there too. So this argument is nonsense to me as well. If Nancy Pelosi does some weird, shady shit off camera in some sort of meeting room, and a squad member is there to witness it. You're telling me like they couldn't like get the public on their side exposing Nancy Pelosi? Briahna even brought it up during this debate, where it's like, people don't like Nancy Pelosi, and she's right. People don't like this person. And you're telling me that she's gonna win the PR battle with probably the most popular politician, right? She's in the top 5, right? If you have like Trump, Bernie, Pelosi, AOC, she's in the top 5 as far as like popularity. And then in certain cases like Trump or Nancy Pelosi, it's more of a hate following. Like, people know about them because they don't like them. They assign blame to these individuals. That's why these people are paid attention to so much. That's why their names will get clicks. But with AOC or Bernie or someone like that, it's more of a, we love you, we're fans of you, which is stupid, but that seems to be the case. We're fans. That's why we follow you so much. Or actually, we're fans, or we're desperate to become fans. We want you to do something that will make us a fan of you. I'm holding out hope for you to be this great thing. So it's like, you're telling me that in a PR battle, Nancy Pelosi's going to win because CNN said AOC's bad? That'll boost her popularity. You fucking kidding me? If you ask me. I could be wrong about that. But once again, I think another stupid, silly, cunt-like argument from Sam Seder. Here's more of this.
I think that there may be a lot of people who turn against them who are somewhat supportive, and to the extent that they have, I mean, I understand that.
He's saying AOC fans will turn on her. Unreal. 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 Nancy needs AOC's PR. AOC does not need Nancy's PR. In fact, it might hurt her. If Nancy Pelosi says, AOC is the greatest politician, I can't wait to vote for her when she runs for president, it's like, that's going to hurt her brand. You kidding me?
The calculus that they have power, presumably, holding over Pelosi. But I'm not convinced that Pelosi wouldn't have just called their bluff. You say, okay, you can be responsible for freezing the Democratic House. Good luck.
Just like the Republicans have no problem.
But they have a different constituency, don't they? The Republicans have Republican constituency.
I think that we have a constituency that wants.
Sam thinks AOC's constituency is people like him. You see, the people who support AOC are going to realize that you can't just do things like that. You have to wait. You have to become friends with Nancy, and then over time you can get more progressives elected, and then one day you could get something done. Trust the plan. Trust us. Trust the plan. Just give it a couple decades, and I know your grandparents and your parents and your kids, and I know all these people probably died already from not having health care, but trust the plan. Just wait. Be patient. I'm taken care of, but I know you guys can wait though. You can wait. That's progressive.
That kind of fight and to be activated as well, but the Democratic Party doesn't court them. We talk constantly on the left about there being 40 million people who don't vote, and all of these working class people who don't vote, and all of these working people, longtime labor families that used to be Democrats for generations, and now they went ahead and voted for Trump, the Obama to Trump voter. We talk and talk and talk about these people, and never once does it seem to occur to us that maybe if we acted with a little more tenacity, maybe if we acted like we were fighting for people in the way that people thought Donald Trump was, the way he presented himself as being, that we could actually grow our ranks, that we could have more persuasive power, that doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 30 years of neoliberalism ain't it.
I agree.
Stop yelling at him. Sam's sensitive. Don't yell at Sam. He's sensitive. You yelled at him for 3 hours. Give him 5 minutes where you're not yelling at him. Jesus, stop smiling. It makes that yelling more intimidating. Christ's sakes.
Persuasive power. That doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 30 years of neoliberalism ain't it?
I agree, but I just don't think that holding up a vote for a vote that's going to lose in the House.
No, Sam, stop. In this scenario, I'm asking you to design your perfect ask. It can be anything you want. Ask for anything.
That would be worth the thing. I mean, I can tell you what I think would be the good ask, but what I cannot tell you is exactly how I would assess, if I was one of those members of Congress, what the chances that Nancy Pelosi, I mean, I don't know, but it's not inconceivable to me that there was an attempt to leverage more, and Nancy Pelosi goes, go fuck yourself.
Right, but it's not leverage.
You want to be out there? Good luck. Good luck with what's going on out there.
But you're not doing it. And until you publicly withhold the vote. Like the point of this, the force of the vote is not some backroom deal that they always are doing and always negotiating. The whole persuasive value of force of vote is that they publicly humiliate Nancy Pelosi by not voting for her.
Your perception is that they're going to humiliate Nancy Pelosi and not themselves.
Yes, they're going to. No.
So yeah, that just goes back to they'll hurt their own constituents would turn against them in favor of Nancy Pelosi over AOC. Unreal. It doesn't. I could be wrong, but that doesn't smell anything like how it is. I think that more of them would be like, "What's wrong with Nancy? What's wrong with her?" If AOC is willing to go against a Democrat, there must be something wrong with this other person she's talking about. I think there's a lot of fans in that boat. A lot. But not according to Sam. According to Sam, everyone loves Nancy first. And we'll be like, AOC, what are you doing? How dare you go against the Queen Nancy?
Regardless of what happens to the squad, Nancy Pelosi is humiliated if it's a public knowledge that she wasn't able to secure a vote for Speaker after how many ever years that she's been in this seat.
You don't think it's
let's add more humiliation, Briahna. What if they well, I'm trying to get this Medicare for All thing, but I have this Iraq War supporter in the way. How about more PR? There's plenty of things you have on Nancy Pelosi that they don't have on AOC in regards to public things. Unless they have some yeah, we were checking you out for years now, AOC. We set up cameras in your apartments. We know all those little things you fucking do that no one sees about. And we'll release those tapes if you go against us. There better be some sort of blackmail thing. Otherwise, Nancy's losing that. She's losing it. I don't even think it would be close. We all know the mainstream would project it as AOC or as Nancy winning, but regardless of that, it's what's your point of being there if you don't recognize that's going to happen, if you don't stand against it regardless, if you don't realize that you're turning way more people than CNN or MSNBC could. You're changing minds in a more rapid pace in greater numbers than MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or any of these fucking channels. So it doesn't matter what PR spin they put on it. You have 11 million fucking followers. And even more than that, people who aren't even on Twitter that support you. Unreal. You can change way more minds than they could. That seems blatantly obvious to me. But not to Sam, though. Not to Sam. He's more pragmatic, though. I'm a little bit of a radical. He's a lot more, down to earth.
Upstart squad members declined to vote for her.
You don't think
it's a huge story.
That's huge. It's going to be impossible for the Democratic establishment to alienate Democrats from figures like Cori Bush and AOC or Ilhan Omar?
Hang on about that. I don't think the Democratic establishment can afford, if properly organized, can afford to alienate its own base any more than the Republican establishment can afford to alienate
I don't think
its
they should do that, but I mean,
they can't go from celebrating, oh, look at our diversity, and oh, look at the first openly gay elected, blah, blah, blah. They can't go from all of that to the next day. Remember the timing of all of this. We won Georgia. Look at Mondaire Jones and look at Ossoff and Warnock. They can't turn from that and suddenly be like, yes, the two Muslim squad members, all these black and brown people, women, hashtag believe us, all the whole the Democrats have set themselves up because they've built this edifice of identity politics and how wonderful all of these young new upstarts are because they're good for the Democratic Party brand. They cannot execute a pivot that fast to try to tell us that at the same time they're all horrible. At the same time, they're doing it in defense of someone as reviled as Nancy Pelosi.
They wouldn't be just saying it. They would be saying they are holding up the seating of Nancy Pelosi, of a Democrat, as Speaker of the House, and for what?
Here's I'm glad you asked that because
that'd be their cue to tell them why, right? Right? Wouldn't that be their cue to like, okay, set up all these interviews, set up all this, start tweeting shit out, start Instagramming shit out, start making videos. Yeah, it's doable. Why wouldn't you support a Democrat, though? Because they're not actually Democrats. And she tells her fans and all that shit. It's like her popularity might actually increase by quite a bit. And then there's the other view, right? Where it's, it's like, if you don't stand against this thing, it's like, what's the point of you? Isn't that like Jimmy Dore's point? If you're just going to fall in lockstep with Nancy Pelosi, then there's no point of you being there. You're going to fall in lockstep for years and years until one day some great hope comes out of nowhere and saves all of you. We finally have the numbers. Now we can start doing Medicare for all. Oh, they already killed it years ago because you had to fall in lockstep with them. What the freak? You're like, then there's no point to you. This is a trust the plan argument. This is QAnon. That's who Sam Seder is. He is QAnon in this, at least the character he's playing. I'm not even sure he actually cares about any of this, but if he does, it's purely QAnon conspiracy of trust the plan. Wait, they have to fall in lockstep with a war criminal, and then eventually they'll expose the war criminal after a couple decades. Then they'll expose Nancy. Just trust us. Trust that. Trust that plan that someday they will someday they'll have enough leverage, real leverage according to Sam, to actually do something. To actually push for the policies they claimed they were about going into Congress. Fuck. I think he actually said in this debate, I don't know if it's in this video clip or not, but he actually said, well, AOC, you can't attack AOC because you need her to recruit other progressives to start unseating these establishment Democrats. Which is another trust the fucking plan argument of don't call out AOC when she does something wrong because we need her character in order to sell other progressives. And then someday, then we can start moving someday. Just trust that all that will work out like that, even though we have no track record of that working out. Obama has to play ball with the Republicans in order to bring them closer so that someday he can bring forth a progressive policy that, now that he has new Republican friends, he can convince them. Just trust the plan. It'll happen. Here we go.
So here's a part of it that I think was missing. I really wish we could have been having these kinds of conversations before forced the vote. I'm not saying that to you, but I wish that this had been where we landed because these are strategic concerns that I think are so important. I think it was important for the squad to come, or whoever progressives got involved in this, to pick a substitute for Nancy Pelosi that made Democrats look bad if they rejected them. Now, I know Barbara Lee said that she didn't want to do it. But I don't really care. Optically, I think the Force the Vote campaign should have done this too in retrospect. Just say it's Barbara Lee. Because look at the context that we're in. First of all, Barbara Lee's a black woman. She's a progressive. She's very well esteemed. She has seniority. Additionally, we just came off, at the same time as Force the Vote was percolating, this leaked tape of Joe Biden being openly hostile and disrespectful to every member of every leader of a black, whatever you call it, rights group in the country, right? Just openly contemptuous of them. So there's a world where you could have gotten a lot of black punditry and maybe even some black political figures also behind you on this and done some solidaristic outreach to the Black Lives Matter community and other criminal justice advocate groups to say, this is retribution. You have to give us this. The Democratic Party has disrespected and looked down on black people for so long, including in this moment. We need a new Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi plans to retire soon anyway. Why can't we have a leader like Barbara Lee?
What if Barbara Lee comes out and says, I don't want it?
But then they have to make an argument for why it shouldn't be someone who is more diverse and more progressive instead of playing this game that they always play with Nancy Pelosi, which is because she's a woman. Anything against her is an attack.
What if Barbara Lee came out and said, I don't want it?
She might.
Well, there's your argument as to why it shouldn't be Barbara Lee.
Right, but
Barbara Lee or someone, we want someone like Barbara Lee.
That was the problem we had in 2018, right? I mean,
imagine this.
She dropped out of the race, essentially, and there was nobody to vote for.
Barbara Lee doesn't interview. First of all, it could be one of the members of the squad if they were really committed to this plan, and it should be. But whomever, I mean, they're all black and brown too. But
it would be a tell that they should be Speaker of the House in their first year of.
Who cares?
I mean,
let's have a public conversation about whether or not we should just follow blindly norms, or whether we should live in a world where people who actually represent the interest in the policy goals of a majority of Americans should be in a leadership position as opposed to the oldest person there.
But I mean, listen, I think that there is. I think it's an interesting conversation, and we're talking about a general theory about this.
Isn't that our job, Sam? What else do we have to do?
I do. I think this is very valuable. This exchange. And I guess I think like there are institutional things, it's sort of the Machiavelli's, if you come for the king, or in this case, the queen, make sure you take her out. And because, and the strategy of trying to, or else.
What happens? Because I've asked you this several times now. What happens to them if they lose?
I haven't worked in Congress, so I don't have enough of awareness institutionally, but it's about resources that you can have access to in terms of money, in terms of staff. It could be
yeah, no one would be jumping to work for AOC or with AOC. She won't make money. AOC wouldn't make money. Nah, no way. I mean, just all of her followers donated $1. Just all of her Twitter followers alone donated $1. That's $11 million. So yeah. She wouldn't be able to do that. Not like Bernie could, smash, campaign donation records or anything like that off of small dollar donations. Yeah, that can't happen.
Committee positions. It could be.
Sam is actually talking about funding for policy ventures and Instagram. 8.6 million on Instagram? No shit. I meant 8.6 as in just 8.6 people. There's a couple of people who aren't quite humans that they count as like 0.2 of a human.
You get an opportunity to introduce some amendments that, or you could get maybe some appropriations to go to your district because maybe you need to build a community center. I mean, there's a lot of books that out.
But you're asking someone to be your boss who's going to say no to all the shit you want, or they're going to take something that you actually want and they're going to yeah, that won't work. What we should do is turn the policy around this way. Now it ends up being a watered down, not even worth having version of what you actually wanted in the first place. Right? Is that how politics works, Sam? Educate me, bro.
Line the sort of transactional nature of these things that are obscured from us.
There's a couple of them on the shelf behind
you. Of course. So you recognize that there could be for Congress people who want to get reelected, who want to be able to deliver material benefits for their constituents, or maybe some of them, are like they want to be the person who gets out in front of the cameras. Whatever it is, there's no doubt that leadership has. We don't know.
We don't know what the consequences are. Part of it.
Right. Everyone is so willing to say we can't do this because the consequences are so high, and I'm sorry, you cannot make that argument if you can't even. You can't even put together a little bit of a cogent argument about.
It depends.
I want to say this. What's important is I said as part of the ask. That's why I started with the ask. You can ask for to ward off against any of those possibilities down the line. If you think you're going to lose committee appointments, make committee appointments part of your ask. If you think you're going to lose out funding to your district, stipulate that you are only going to get this vote if you get commensurate funding with what you got last year or whatever you asked for. The sky is the limit, and if you don't get it, then you just say, I'm going to dethrone Nancy Pelosi and put someone in her place with less power.
I guess she's talking about leverage there, right? Leverage. As in, yeah. We want these policies, and if you're straight up just going to say no to all of it, then we're not going to vote for you. Period. And then once you show the people what you're asking for, and it's like, wait a minute, this all sounds like shit that's supposed to help us. Why would we support Nancy in this thing? So fuck Nancy. Get her the fuck out of here. I don't know if people would say that, but you know, enough people would say fuck Nancy. There's already enough people saying fuck Nancy. So it's like the squad had leverage. Sam has no leverage in this argument. There's nothing there for him. All his arguments are shot. I watched the whole exchange happening. This is why I called it exposing, because he has no leverage yet he continues on anyways. That's the thing that will make me call you a cunt. It's like, what are you in this for then? If you're in it for money, you're a cunt. If you're in it just to feel like you sound right, you're a cunt. If you're in it because you're some sort of creeper who wants to make sure Nancy Pelosi is the winner no matter what, you're a fucking cunt. In fact, let me play this. Let me see if I can find this thing.
For instance, Nancy Pelosi's not for single parent. For instance, Nancy Pelosi's not for single parent. So you would have just as much fire for Nancy Pelosi being against ensuring more Americans than you would any Republican.
No. Nancy, first of all, Nancy...
She's an impediment to progress when it comes to health care, and you know it.
No, she's not right now. She's not, because she is not in power.
She's the leader of the party in the... Okay.
She is the leader of the House caucus. She is a great leader. I would not support, frankly, a challenge to her, particularly in this era. She would have sat down. She would have left.
Look at all the seats that have been lost under her watch. If she was the manager of a baseball team, she'd be out of there.
No,
you gotta give me something.
You're thinking of the general manager. The manager plays.
I love how this is just some normal guy. It's like, if she was the manager of a sports team, they would have fired her for this. Just using dumb guy logic.
All the seats that have been lost under her watch. If she was the manager of a baseball team, she'd be out of there.
No,
you gotta give me something.
You're thinking of the general manager. The manager plays with the team that they have on the field. The general manager makes the trades and finds the prospects. That's what you don't understand about what her role is. That's what her role is. You're making a category error there.
Yeah, cunt. Yeah, he's finding a way to be correct to where he takes his baseball reference and keeps going with it, bro. I mean, that's funny and that's interesting. Like, I would probably do that just for shits and giggles, but but cunt. My God. I love Nancy Pelosi. She's the best thing. Like, she should be there. I wouldn't support a vote against her. This is from 2017. Unreal. Not that long ago. In political terms, it is like yesterday, because these creepers are still roaming around. Fuck. But, all right. This might be the actual reason. The actual reason why why Sam is so fervent about being stop insulting AOC, and we have to have Nancy. We have to. Otherwise, how are we going to get anything done if we have, how are we going to save the Jews if we don't appoint Hitler? I don't get it. Fuck. So, this is what I think a lot of people would consider the main reason. Here we go. Why Sam is taking the take he's taking. Here we go.
I think we can talk about the effect of Jimmy Dore's argumentative style on this discourse.
Well, it's not an argumentative style.
Okay.
Not, I don't mind his style. I think that when you put out and make the argument over and over again that she's a sellout and they're fraud, okay. I think that does damage.
We can and we should talk.
Okay. If you put out the message that they're sellouts or frauds, it does hurt them. Okay, but what if they're actually sellouts and frauds? You haven't made the case that they're not. You have not made that case. What you have is you have Briahna Joy Gray, who you're sitting in front of, who won't say words like that about them. She just won't. Let's be honest about this. She's not going to say those words about the squad or any of them. So we're just accepting it. We're just accepting it as a fact that they're not fucking sellouts, or they're not, you know, creepers that pretended to be something in order to make people feel like, yeah, we're part of the political process. Meanwhile, the same game keeps continuing on like nothing happened. The same shitty policies, the same war still going on. Whatever. It's all continuing on, but fuck, I feel like I'm a part of this because we defeated the bad guys by getting AOC or Ilhan Omar or whoever in. So it's like, you haven't made the case that they're not sellouts. In fact, this whole force to vote thing was kind of like, what do they call it? The great unmasking? To where it's like, oh, this exposes the shit out of you. Which gives us leeway to call them frauds and whatnot. And it's like, we're supposed to just take Sam's side and say, well, of course they're not. And you ask them, well, why not? Why aren't they? Well, they have stated policies on paper, and they don't take corporate money, and it's essentially a Kyle Kulinski argument. It's the same argument as Kyle Kulinski. There are allies, but they're just weak. Sam won't even go there to call them weak. They're really good people. They're just weak-minded. So why the fuck are they there then? Because we need allies. For what? Because someday those allies can create other allies. And then, 20 years after your parents have died already from lack of health care, then we'll change things. Trust us. Trust the plan.
Talk about that, but that's different than making an argument for why force the vote is good or bad. And
if you're asking why I didn't support it, that's why. Because
you didn't support it because of Jimmy Dore. Because of the PR of Jimmy Dore being around it. That's a good reason. You stopped being anti-war because Jimmy was the leader of the anti-war movement. Unreal. I mean, there was this revolution. I was going to stop Hitler, but Jimmy Dore was the face of it, so I had to get in the way of it,
I didn't want to associate.
We need better anti-Hitler people. So, we'll let the pro-Hitler people, keep going for a while until we find the right anti-Hitler leader. That's the logic.
Myself with a attack.
Okay, that's honest.
He's a con.
You're not saying that you actually think that force the vote was an ineffective strategy or a bad idea. You didn't like that it was associated with Jimmy Dore.
I thought, like I've said this 3 times on this, and I thought it was a middling idea. When I found out that they were leveraging other stuff that I thought had more material benefit and not.
But it doesn't have more material benefit because they could have asked at least for you to get rid of all
you and I have a disagreement. I believe that PayGo, exempting PayGo.
But they didn't exempt PayGo.
Excuse me. At a time.
That should stop the argument right there, right? That's his whole point. That should be like, oh, let's stop and figure this out first. It's like, oh, you didn't get what you wanted with PayGo. You didn't get rid of PAYGO. Right? She just brought that, like, oh, if I'm like, oh, I said this before. If I'm like, oh, Michael Jordan's, he's the best football player of all time. And, you know, and I can prove this by saying, and she's like, wait, Michael Jordan didn't play football. Excuse me, let me finish my argument. It's like, wait a minute, your argument's done for right there because, right, the initial premise holds no ground. So why are we going to let you continue on with this? Like, you should be stopped right there and maybe argue the merits of whether or not they got rid of or kept PAYGO. And I believe she says it's tied to like coronavirus legislation, which means it's like limited to that. Which means if we ever actually get rid of this virus thing, it's like, oh, I guess that goes with it, right?
Where we desperately need funding. We need expansion on all sorts of things, ranging from expanded unemployment insurance. We need checks. We need, I mean, all of that. I think that was a valuable get.
It was valuable, but it wasn't a get.
Huh?
It was valuable, but it wasn't a get. You have no knowledge if their failure to force the vote resulted in getting those things, if those things were already planned concessions or not. Moreover, part of my demand was to get rid of PAYGO entirely. So if we're talking about the material value of either of those things.
Yes, your demand was look, I'm saying there is an argument. Okay.
That's unrealistic.
Neither one of us knows how much you could have leveraged at this point.
Well, here's
you want to argue that you think that their negotiations, that their ask wasn't big enough. Fine. I don't have a big issue.
That is what I'm arguing. Here's why.
But as to why I wanted to distance myself as fast as I could, because I'm not going to be part of a project that disempowers for what I think is a highly speculative tactic that I think is dubious, frankly. But again, I was perfectly willing to just you know, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Like you said, there was no strategy on my part to go like, I'm going to support this so that Bree signs on to it, for instance, and then I'm going to pull the rug out. No, it was and to say that Jimmy's not associated with Force the Vote.
I didn't say that Jimmy's not associated with Force the Vote.
To say that he wasn't the biggest advocate or the person most close to
is very central to it. It was his idea.
That is why when he started to use it as a leverage to disempower the progressives in Congress, I decided I'm done.
So I'd like to address.
So is the strategy to disempower them by getting them to use their power? Is that what you're saying? Or is disempowering showing how they didn't use their power? That's another thing. But it's like, do you see the logic of it makes no sense to me at all. I didn't support the uprising against Hitler because I don't like the guy who was leading it. Unreal. Now, if you wanted to make a case about it, an infiltrator, Jimmy's an infiltrator trying to... Actually, that might be essentially what he's saying. Jimmy's like an infiltrator for whatever reason, right? For his own narcissism. In order to undermine the squad from basically not doing anything anyways, but yeah, whatever, to undermine them, just to undermine them, because he's a narcissist and all that.
Is why when he started to use it as a leverage to disempower the progressives in Congress, I decided I'm done.
So I'd like to address that point, if I may. I don't believe that Jimmy is trying to disempower the progressives in Congress. What I believe Jimmy is doing, whether or not you agree with him or the tactic he's using, is trying to use his platform to pressure the elected officials, the progressives that we have worked so hard and have this unprecedented number, to your point, in Congress, to do the thing that we want them to do, which is to use power when it falls in their lap. Now, in this instance, we didn't need to get a majority of progressives in Congress to enact the plan. That was the whole spark and magic of it. That with a very small number of people.
Well, let's take that first premise, though. Take the first premise that you made, the assertion that you don't think Jimmy's agenda is to disempower progressives.
I'm sorry. Which way is this going to go?
See how she progresses the conversation, and he brings it back to Jimmy.
Assertion that you don't think Jimmy's agenda is to disempower progressives.
I'm sorry. Which way is this going to go? I feel like I'm in the middle of a point. I feel like I've been letting you.
Okay, go.
If I could just finish this point. I have like a whole notepad of notes that I'm trying to catch up on from the various issues that you brought up that I think are important to address. Jimmy's perspective, I don't want to speak for him, but it seems obvious to me what he's doing is to be the farthest, angriest version of the left, to create political pressure on progressives to do what they said they were going to do when they ran for office. One of those, AOC in particular, since she's come under focus, said that she wanted to oust Pelosi. She complained just this past January, a year ago now, that it was regrettable that the Democratic Party was so moderate, so to the right, that we couldn't even get a floor vote on Medicare for all. That's almost a direct quote. So what Jimmy's trying to do is say, I don't care about AOC per se. I don't care about the squad per se. I'm invested in these individuals insofar as that they're advancing the interests of the progressive movement and are fighting tooth and nail for the policies that caused us to support them in the first place. And he is willing to become the antagonist in that by being the most ferocious attack dog to push them where they need to go. If AOC were to say, hey, this is my plan for Medicare for all, and demonstrate a fighting spirit, there's no one in this world, I think, who would imagine that Jimmy Dore would just randomly keep antagonizing her for no reason. No, he doesn't have a vendetta out against AOC. Whether or not I think that his approach is most useful is a different question. But he doesn't have a vendetta out against AOC because he hates her or something. It's because he simply wants her to conform with her own campaign promises.
And that goes back to just logically looking at it. It's like, well, was Jimmy ranting before AOC was even a political thing? Was he ranting about people? I think so. Which would mean that, and a lot of it had to do with healthcare and these people being beholden to health insurance companies. So it's like, oh, Jimmy was already complaining about this. And then when someone waltzes in who claims to be about the same thing he's about in regards to making sure everyone is covered in regards to healthcare, with the similar type of strategy, right? A Medicare for all type thing, single payer, and they don't do it, it's like, well, we're out of fucking options. I yell and I scream about the people who are already been there about how they won't give you healthcare. Now we have someone who's claiming they're about that, and they don't do it. So now I got to yell at them. In fact, I might have to yell louder. Because it's like, you can't let... Because that's your last chance, essentially. Right? Someone who's actually claiming to be about what you're about, and they're still falling in line with the quote-unquote establishment. That should be your last straw already, right? I've waited and I waited, and we waited for the right person to come around, and here's this the right person came around, here they are. Oh, and they're not doing what we would expect them to do, or what they even claim themselves that they would do. It's like, fuck. I guess we just let them get away with it and just say, hey, you know what, just trust her. Trust AOC. Shut up and just trust her. Trust the squad. Trust them. At some point, they'll leverage enough power, even though we just went over a moment where they had leverage. That's not the right leverage we want, right, Sam? That's the wrong kind of leverage. We want to wait longer until we'll infiltrate them slowly but surely. AOC will get these other people elected, even though I think that's been disproven. How you've had like an actual progressive running against an establishment Democrat, and AOC supported the establishment person. Or the interview where AOC is saying, I'm going to vote blue no matter who. Like, consistently over and over again, and you expect normal people to shut up. Unfucking real. Unreal.
I don't believe that.
Oops, sorry. That's called I hate myself face. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. Unreal. I mean, I would say disappointment, but I had no hope in the guy in the first place. I don't know this fucking person. Or when I was introduced to this person, I had no like, oh, really? Sam Seder? Really? Okay. There's no high hopes coming in. So I can't use the word disappointment. What do I do then? I call him a cunt. He's a cunt. That's all I have. That's all I have for this fucking guy. This is an hour-long video. Enjoy it, guys. 1 full hour. So, all right. So hopefully, I guess my little thing, my opinion at the end of all this, Squidward. My opinion after of all this is the strategy guy, Sam Seder, is losing in strategy. The guy making PR points, like Sam Seder, of, oh, hey, you might make the squad look bad, or don't call her a fraud or a sellout. That makes her look bad. He loses on that point, too. Because it's not like Jimmy's just making this up out of nowhere. Like, he has reasons to call them this. And many other people do, too, which is why you see them turning on them. You're telling me, like, if Jimmy Dore didn't say anything, you're telling me people wouldn't turn on AOC? They'd turn on Jimmy for not turning on AOC. Just like they turned on you. Well, yeah. A lot of them were like, fuck you a long time ago. But, you know. Unreal. Actually, there was a point in this video. In this video. Where Briahna's like, well, you have, like, essentially making the point, like, you have a platform, you can say things to people, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, look, this is IKEA. Look at my background. I got this from IKEA. I'm nobody. He has more subscribers than Jimmy Dore. He has more. Granted, I think that's a little fishy on its own. Like, who the fuck is following you? Yet you're only getting fucking 18,000 views or whatever. While Jimmy's getting hundreds of thousands. Yeah. Subscribers go up, views go down. How does that happen? Yeah. So I'm like, and that's just a point till that just brings it on home for me. I can't do anything. Unreal. Unreal. What a cunt. I'm sure this video will be flagged for community guidelines. Sam Seder fans. Samward? Fuck. Like, Holdor's more useful than you. He can only say 2 words and he's more useful. He's more verbally useful than you are. You're a little cunt. Just being honest. He has more of an impact of upbringing people's lives than Sam Seder does. Some fictional character who can only say 2 words. He has a big dick. He has big dick energy. That might actually be fake, though. I don't know. Whatever. It's a giant dick, though. So, yeah, alright. Like I said, brings up strategy, gets wrecked on strategy from Briahna. Brings up PR, gets wrecked on PR from Briahna and just looking at things. Just looking at them. Brings up Jimmy, and it's like, Jimmy's making way better points than you are. And I don't agree with Jimmy on everything. But it's clear, it seems clear where he's coming from and where you're coming from. Jimmy's like, well, if we don't put pressure on the squad, then, like, what the fuck is left? You want us to wait more years? Like, we have the squad. They're an upgraded version of the original squad. They're a little bit better. Let's support them. But let's let the original squad do whatever they want. Who's going to let Nancy Pelosi do whatever she wants? Who's going to let Joe Biden do whatever he wants? And on and on and so. Who's going to let Donald Trump do whatever he wants? And on it goes. When does the buck stop, man? Is it bus or buck? The bus, right? The bus stops here. That's right. The buck. The Milwaukee Bucks stops here. No, Giannis. No. So, I don't even see any. This is why I call this exposing, because I don't even see any wiggle room for Sam to squirm out of it. It's just exposing on every level. Right? With Jimmy, who's going to rant and yell, he's not going to be like Briahna, who's like, well, no, wait a minute. Strategically, you got that wrong. Right? Jimmy's going to be like, well, what if the fucking moon lands in Lake Michigan? What if? What if? Right? He's not going to bring that, I'm a lame-brained pseudo-intellectual who only understands hyper-masculine strategical arguments. And, like, you lost there. So now what? Now what's your point? You don't have one. Gotcha. All you have is a repivot to Jimmy Dore. All right, guys. Please subscribe if you like. Comment. Agree. Disagree. Tell me what you think. Is Sam Seder a cunt or not? Nah. Is there any... Did Sam make any fucking points to where I was like, yeah, Sam's right on that one. Okay. Or was it all just, I'm trying to win an argument? I'm just trying to win. You tell me. Don't forget to share Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. And with all that said, give this video a thumbs down. I got to reach over here for my keyboard. Sorry. Give it a thumbs down. Now.
Say you wanna get in.